how to make, or how I made, a chair. Let's get into it. I started with the last of some bois blanc lumber acquired from our days living in Congo, cutting it down to about 20-inch planks to get started on the chair seat, then ripping those into roughly 6-inch strips. I then squared all the pieces. After that, I laminated 2 sets of 3 planks. Once cured, I planed away any surface variations. Trimmed them down to square the ends. Then laminated the 2 plank surfaces together to make a thicker blank for the seat. Again, once cured, I measured and marked the angled dimensions for the seat, 13 3/4 inches at the back and 17 3/4 inches at the front. Then, using the bandsaw, I cut along the mark lines. With the very old heirloom marking tool, I mark the outer edges of a recess that will later be used to house the walnut spline that will anchor the seat to the legs. I then set the table saw blade to the desired depth of the recess, about 1.5 inches. Then, in multiple passes, cut the recess. To add a little dimension, I then cut a bevel on the 4 sides of the bottom of the seat. Setting the seat aside for a moment, I turned to the legs. I went through the same preparation process to square and laminate the lumber to create thicker blanks for the cut pieces. I started this project with larger, closer to 12-quarter pieces for the legs, but made a few major design mistakes on a limited supply and ended up landing here. I'll go into more detail on the mistakes made in an upcoming Patreon video. With the blanks ready, I ripped them into equal halves to get enough for 4 legs and 2 stretchers. Then cut the ends of the front legs to 13.8 and 4.1 degrees respectively, the back legs at 15.4 and 10 degrees, and the ends of the stretchers at 13.8 and 1.4 degrees to create the desired angular profile. Using a jig, I cut a taper on the inside of each leg. With my 2 sets ready, I got to work on the joinery. I chose bridle joints, so using a carving knife, I marked the joining surfaces at their intersection for each joint on every piece. Then mark the cut lines for both the bridle tenon and bridle mortise. Then, with yet another very old heirloom handsaw, a coping saw, and chisel, got to work honing the bridle mortise for the back to stretcher joint. do the back leg bridle tenon, I used a combination of the saw, a trim router, and again a chisel to clear the way. With a nice snug fit there, I used a similar process to complete the front leg bridle joints. With those joints done, I needed to get the bottom stretcher ready before I could glue everything into place for each leg set. Using a 3/4 inch by 3/4 inch piece, I asymmetrically beveled the 90-degree corners on the table saw. Then turned to the lathe to turn the 1/2 inch tenons on either end of the stretcher. To place them, I dry fit the leg sets, then mark the height of the stretcher mortise. Using the level marking as my angle guide, I drilled a pilot hole before drilling a 1/2 inch through mortise on each leg. Then, to get them ready for glue up, I sanded each piece down to finishing level. Time for glue. Once cured, I finalized the front bridle joints with 2 oak 1/4 inch cross tenons before giving each another good sand down. With both the leg sets and seat now ready, it was time to turn to anchoring the two together. I wanted to try out a design I cooked up using a piece of walnut to basically spline the 2 chair facets together. So I mirrored the recess from the seat onto the stretcher of each leg set. Then cut the walnut down to size. And again, mirrored the inverse of the stretcher recess so that the walnut spline could fit snugly. To add some design flair, I finned the outer exposed edges of the spline. The last component for the base to prepare is, again, the lower stretcher. I used the same beveling and tenoning technique on a piece of walnut. Then measured, marked, and drilled the tenon mortises. With the components of the chair base all ready, I turned to the last facet, the chair back. I started with 3 laminated pieces for the arms and back. I marked the angular cut lines for the arm on the 2 smaller pieces. Then use the bandsaw to cut them out. To round the back outer corner, I drew a cropped cut line on the top of the arm and followed it with the bandsaw. For the back, I cut the ends to the same angle of the back of the seat. Then beveled the bottom and top surfaces of the back to mirror the angles they abut for the arms, i.e. so that all surfaces would sit flush when aligned. After that, I kind of trial and errored my way through beveling the surface to improve the comfort and design. To improve comfort further, I used a rounded travisher to hewn the part of the back that would actually meet someone's back. Then gave all the pieces a finishing level sand down. Before using a jig based on the beveled edges of the back piece to cut the mortises for the dowels that would hold the arms and back together. Again, with oak dowels, I glued the components together. I'm not super happy with my process here, so leave a comment below if you have a better idea on clamping, construction, etc. Once the back and arms cured, I used the arms to mark the cut line for the recesses on the corresponding leg. Then, with a router and chisel, I cleared the way for the back to connect to the legs. With a nice fit there, I turned to some of the last components before glue up. I measured and marked the location of the mortises in the seat and the back for the chair spindles. The spindles matched the same asymmetrical beveling of the stretchers. Then, using a compass and straight edge, I marked the rough guides for hewing the seat. With the rounded travisher, I cleared a more comfortable seat, something to take it a step or two away from sitting on just a flat board. Then finally gave the seat its time on the sanding table. I sanded the remaining components of the splines, spindles, and back bottom stretcher. Then gave the leg sets, splines, and seat a quick chamfer that I tidied with the chisel. Finally, time to put everything together. After the glue cured, I set about adding dowels from 1/4-inch oak to help hold everything in place. I splined a pair on the back joints for added strength. Then got to work tidying up the finishing on the back to match the chair. Before finishing, I added a few quick chamfers on the feet to help protect the floor. Using a gravity feed spray gun, I used a few coats of water-based polyurethane to finish the chair. Gave the finish a 1000 grit sand to improve the feel. Then one last coat. And that's a wrap. Next time, I diverge from the custom furniture into the DIY reno realm to upgrade a ratty set of stairs into a modern passageway. Also, a sincere thank you to my patrons. If you're not yet a patron and think the content's worth a few bucks and want to support its creation, check out the link in the description. Until next time.